Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Shining Sarcophagus deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because we just got an awesome new boss monster for this deck, Archfiend's Advent, which is such a cool card that's actually based on Summon Skull. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of our notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name, description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting a request deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing a single copy of Archfiend's Advent. This card is an awesome one-of in the deck that's super easy to get to in this build, with the effect that while you control Shining Sarcophagus, you can normal summon this card without tributing. And other monsters you control gain 500 attack during your turn only. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can actually target one monster that your opponent controls and take control it into the end phase of the turn, but that monster cannot attack unless you control Shining Sarcophagus when this effect was activated, which is an insane ability that you can just take your opponent's monster to be able to OTK. This card is an amazing one-of the build, but it's super easy to get to, which is why we just play a single copy in the build. And it's so cool to finally have a new Summon Skull card. We then play 2 copies of Gandora G. Gandora G is really cool as a 2-of in the deck that's just an awesome board wipe in this build. This card has the effect that it gains 300 attack for each banished card, and you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. And if you control a Shining Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card into hand, then pay half your life points to be able to destroy as many other cards on the field as possible. And if you do, banish them. Then special summon a level 7 or lower monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck and increase its level by the number of cards destroyed by this effect, which is really cool to be able to use with your copy of Silent Magician 0 or Silent Swordsman 0. We then play 3 copies of Gadget Trio. Gadget Trio is the most powerful normal summon in the entire deck and the best starter in the entire build. That if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Shining Sarcophagus or a spell trap card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, which is such a powerful effect to instantly get to Shining Sarcophagus. And I love that about this card. We then play 2 copies of Silent Magician 0. Silent Magician 0 is really good as a 2-of in the build, and a great card to be able to summon off our copy of Ties That Bind. His card has the effect that if your opponent draws a card, increases card's level by the number of cards drawn. Also, while this card is a level higher than its original level, it gains attack equal to the difference times 500. So this card can get absolutely massive extremely quickly. Also, when your opponent activates a spell card or effect while you control Shining Sarcophagus quick effect, you can actually negate the activation if you do increase this card's level by 1. We then play 2 copies of Silent Swordsman 0. Silent Swordsman 0 is really cool as a 2-of in the build. I have bumped this card up to 2 for this particular build because it has the effect that once per turn during the standby phase, increases card's level by 1. Also, while this card's level is higher than its original level, it gains attack equal to the difference times 500, just like your copy of Silent Magician 0. It also has the effect that when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets Shining Sarcophagus or a monster that mentions it, and that you control, quick effect, you can negate the activation to increase his card's level by 1, which is a really cool targeting protection for this card to be able to do. We then play a single copy of More Marshmallow. This card is a really good defensive card, and I have put this card in this particular build to be able to use as an awesome defensive option. This card has the ability that while you control Shining Sarcophagus, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, your opponent's monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this card, and you can only use the following effects this card once per turn. That during your opponent's turn, if you control Shining Sarcophagus quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is an amazing ability. Instantly get this card out on your side of the field and just protect your monsters from attacks. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom's an amazing 3-of just to stop the opponent from touching the deck. We then also play 3 copies of Shifter. Shifter is really good in this build as a 3-of, basically just to banish everything that would be going to the graveyard, and by activating this card, sometimes you can instantly end games. It also makes your copy of Gandora G come out absolutely massive, depending on the amount of cards that are banished, making this card a definite 3-of in the build, plus we're not reliant on the graveyard. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is definitely a one-up build just to stop the opponent from hand-trapping us while we're going in for all of our plays. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Tactics Talents is really good to be able to play as a 2-of-them build because this card is a great effect to let us draw 2 cards, take control of an opponent's monster, or look at our opponent's hand, and choose a card from it and shuffle it into the deck. We then play 2 copies of Ties That Bind. Ties That Bind is an amazing 2-of in the build, and this card helps out so much in helping us swarm the board. And if you control a Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, you can special summon it to 2 level 4 lower monsters with different names that mention Shining Sarcophagus from your hand and or deck. Also, for the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon from the extract, which is not that big of a deal. It's by having a monster on your side of the field and activating this card, you're usually going to summon out a copy of your Silent Magician 0 and Silent Swordsman 0 to your side of the field, which is going to get you a targeting negation and a spell negation, which is really cool to be able to do. We then play 2 copies of Turn Silence. Turn Silence is really cool as a 2-of in the build, but you only need 2 copies of this card. It has the effect to let you target a face-up monster that you control and increase its level by 3. Also, if you activate this card in response to your opponent's monster effect activation, while you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, negate that opponent's effect, which is a really cool instant negation, and I love that about this card, and it just helps you instantly negate an opponent's monster's effect. This card also has the ability during the damage calculation, if you're a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus battles, you manage this card from the graveyard and then in the battle phase, giving you a little bit of protection. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity helps out a lot in this build just to help you dig into the deck for the exact cards that you need. Plus, you don't need the entire extract, so this card is really helpful in the build. We then play 3 copies of Shining Sarcophagus. Shining Sarcophagus is what the entire deck revolves around. This card is an amazing 3-of and definitely a 3-of in the build because you really need to get to this card as quickly as possible and keep it on the field. This card cannot be destroyed by monster effects, meaning it is immune to a Gandora's effect, and it also has the ability to only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. That during your main phase, you can add 1 card that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, and if your opponent special summons a monster from the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can discard a spell card, then target one of those monsters and send it to the grave, which is a really cool ability. This card is amazing in the deck, and overall why I love this deck so much. And if you guys would like to check out combos for this deck, I actually have a combo video that will show you 3 combos that you need to know to play this deck. We then play 3 copies of Future Silence. Future Silence is really cool as a 3-of in the deck. This card is basically Rhoda for the build, letting you add a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to the hand. Then if you activate this card during the battle phase, while you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentioned it, each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand, which is a really interesting effect for this card to have. We then also play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Poly is really cool as a 3-of in the deck just to break your opponent's board while also summoning out an awesome boss monster to our side of the field. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to start with a single copy of There Can Be Only One. We play so many different types of monsters in this deck that this card is actually broken and doesn't do anything to us at all. This card is really cool to be able to flip up against the opponent, especially if they're playing a deck that only plays one type of monster, making it very easy to go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is really good as a 3-of in the build just to stop your opponent's monster effects while also locking down entire columns of spells and traps. This card is extremely helpful as a 3-of in the deck, and it's just a really powerful card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start with a single copy of Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel is actually very easy to summon out in this deck because your copy of Archfiend Advent is a level 6 and all of your different Shining Sarcophagus monsters from your copy of Silent Magician 0 and Silent Swordsman 0 are actually level 4 until they increase their levels, making it super easy to be able to go in for your copy of Chaos Angel. Plus, it's just a really good option because if you use light monsters to be able to summon this card, then you actually have the ability that synchro monsters you control are unaffected affected by a monster's effects activated by your opponent. If you use dark monsters, monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. This card is really good to be able to summon out to your side of the field, and you don't even have to use a tuner to be able to summon this card out to your side of the field, which is absolutely amazing. We then play a single copy of Mud Dragon and a single copy of Garua. These cards are just really good super poly targets to be able to play in the deck to break your opponent's board, alongside our copy of Dracostapelia. I feel like these are the best super poly targets in the entire game to be able to play right now, especially since Dracostapelia is just really insane because it's a walking negate. We then play a single copy of Bagooska. Bagooska is just really easy to make in this deck to be able to slow down the game just in case you need to. One copy of Typhon. Typhon's just super easy to make in so many different decks and a definite one of in this build. We then play a single copy of Zeus. Zeus is amazing to be able to make because it's just an awesome board wipe in this particular build. We then play a single copy of Access Code. Access Code's really good at popping multiple cards on the field. Is overall just a fantastic boss monster. One copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa's really good in this deck as a 1-up to establish multiple monster negates on your side of the field, especially with how easy it is to be able to swarm the board. We then play a single copy of Nightmare Unicorn to spin stuff. One copy of Selene to be able to step into our copy of Access Code, especially since we have so many spellcasters in the deck. It's really easy to be able to use this card in this build. One copy of Nightmare Phoenix to pop spells and traps. One copy of the Dark Charmer, because we do play a lot of darks in this particular build, so this card is very good to be able to make in this deck. One copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is a great card, but you don't have to play this card if you don't have it. It is a great card because it is a double interruption, but if you don't have SP Little Knight, you could play a copy of Nightmare Cerberus or even Underworld Goddess as a more budget option, or any rank 4 that you want in this particular build. We then finally play a single copy of IP. IP is really good to be able to make your copy of SP or your copy of Nightmare Unicorn during the opponent's turn. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. I absolutely love playing Shining Sarcophagus because it's so nostalgic to be able to play, and it's awesome that we finally have a Summon Skull card for this deck. I absolutely love that, and it's just such a cool looking card because it's a golden Summon Skull, which is absolutely amazing. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification button, notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.